So, is this thing recording? Well, you wanted a story for your fluff piece, so let me tell you one. My name is... well, does it even matter? I'm pretty sure I'm neither the first one this has happened to, nor will I be the last. There are countless tales just like mine. Some of them are from hundreds of years ago. Others will only happen in the decades to come. You know, and all these stories start at the exact same place. When I was a child, I was always fascinated by the sea. I loved stories of pirates and adventure, tales of explorers braving the waves in search of something greater. From Vikings riding their longboats to raid innocent villages, to the Peloponnesian people spreading their civilization across multiple islands. From the adventures of Portuguese explorers looking for new land and trade routes, to the stories of submarines and their crew caught in a metal tube far down beneath the waves. Well, those last kinds of stories didn't reach me until I was a little bit older, at least. They aren't exactly tales you would tell a child. But the other, oh boy did I love them. I even enjoyed reading Moby Dick when I was 10 years old, which should tell you quite a bit about how much I was into that whole setting. Whenever there were boats involved, my curiosity got piqued. Once I got older, I got into the more grisly tales as well. The true story of some of the famous pirate captains, from Blackbeard Edward Teach to Anne Bonny. Back then, I thought they had found something that was truly enviable. Freedom. They were able to choose their own path in life, and even though I know better now, I still remember those times when I was lying in bed, dreaming of braving the waves myself, unbound and free. Those were the days. Well, we all have to grow up sometimes though, right? My fascination with the sea didn't stop. It almost got worse. I begged and pleaded with my parents every year, well, every holiday to take me to the beach. And more often than not, they followed my wish. Those vacations I absolutely loved. Standing knee-deep in the water, smelling the salt in the air, and enjoying the breeze, while looking out into the sea, was what I lived for. Once, my dad even took me out on a small boat. My first voyage, he called it, and I don't think I ever was that excited before or since. We didn't get out far, mind you. Just enough so the beach looked tiny, and the people on it like ants. I still clearly remember when we left the port, though. Looking down into the ocean water, I saw the ground getting further and further away. My dad's hand was holding onto my life jacket to keep me from falling in. I watched the color drain out of the ground as it turned from bright to dark blue. Those memories still give me the chills. Sometimes I dream about it. And when I do, I always wake up with a smile. I mean, I was happy then. Seeing and especially feeling the waves against the bow, hearing the wind in the sails, the sun so high above, and the ocean below. It was pure bliss. I couldn't stop talking about it the rest of the vacation. which I'm sure annoyed my family to no end. But on that day, I made a vow to myself. Whatever it took, I would find a life close to the ocean, so that I could repeat that experience every day. It's kinda funny, right? Me as a child, already setting things in motion. Well, life doesn't give you anything for free. I knew that, even back then. There was no way for me to live my dream staying at my parents' house. So pretty much the moment I turned 18, I set out into the world. My first stop was a small port city, just half a day's drive away from where I had grown up. I got a crappy job and shared an apartment with 2 others while I spent my time walking around the harbor, looking for work. It didn't take me too long to find something. My first job was neither glamorous nor easy, but I was lucky to get it nonetheless. A small fishing vessel with just a few people still needed another pair of hands on deck. I talked to the captain first, and he assured me that I needed no kind of prior experience, that I would learn everything on the job, but I absolutely must not get seasick. Well, my grin from ear to ear probably already told him what I thought about that. We shook hands, and not even a week later, I boarded the ship. The crew looked at me like I was insane, and I greeted them smiling brightly at sunrise. I know at least 2 of them joked that smile would soon disappear, but it didn't. We set off, and for the first time in my life, I completely lost sight of the land. My smile grew only wider as my heart began racing. We were out there, in the ocean, on a small ship with a dragnet completely at the mercy of nature. Of course, it wasn't some vacation. I quickly found out how hard people had to work on a boat like that. My first day, I spent mostly scrubbing the deck and helping the rest of the crew with every task they could think of. It might have been unsettling to them, seeing someone so young throwing themselves into each and every job without complaining once. I just say that because one of them asked me if I had some mental condition or something, which made me smile all the time. Well, he didn't say it exactly like that. With his thick accent, he asked me who had dropped me on my head and how many times for me to turn out like that. I just laughed. Back then, out in the ocean, I wouldn't have been able to take anything badly. It didn't take long for the people to get infected by my spirit. Before the day was over, one of them pulled me aside and offered me a sip from his flask. Jesus Christ, the stuff burned as it went down my throat. I coughed and groaned, and the guy laughed hard enough that he slipped, which made the rest of the crew break out in laughter. I was wheezing as well by then, and had to hold onto the railing so as not to fall over. Just a few hours later, the one who had asked me if something was wrong with me before pulled me aside and said, "You're all right." Which is probably my favorite compliment I've ever gotten. That night, when we returned to the harbor, I left the ship tired, sore, covered in fish guts and sweat, and smiling more brightly than I'd ever had. My dream had become a reality. I knew. Before I left, The captain told me to come back at the same time tomorrow, and I don't think he would have managed to keep me away if he had tried. This wasn't exactly like the stories I had read when I was a child, but I still felt so good, so at ease when I returned to the apartment, that it didn't matter at all. I had found my place in the world. My roommates weren't thrilled by the smell, as you might imagine, but it didn't matter to me. I could pay my rent in time, and whenever the boat took a break, I just spent the days on the docks, walking around or watching the people working there. Maybe, if things had gone differently, I would have stayed with that boat and crew. Maybe I would have bought my own vessel sometime later. But, you know, it's not like the world gives any of us much of a break for long, right? A year passed, with me living in absolute bliss, before things started to slip out of my grasp. The catch got smaller and smaller, and since the market prices fluctuated, the captain's mood soon turned sour. We set off earlier, stayed out later, but somehow our luck just seemed to disappear. Once, we even went out with a storm warning in effect. I still remember that day. 2 of the crew shook their head as they looked out over the ocean, where dark clouds were gathering, and told the captain to go and fuck himself, because they wouldn't board such a vessel under those conditions. Well, we set out anyway, 2 men short, in rough seas. I would be lying if I was to say I didn't feel anxious, looking at the waves getting bigger and bigger. But somehow, I think I enjoyed that trip even more than all of the others before. It was an adventure. A dangerous one, to be sure. But when the first big wave suddenly hit the boat and lifted us up, I somehow felt alive. Like my life had a meaning. Like this would show me how far I could go. My other crewmates weren't in a good mood, though. They cursed and whined while I raced from spot to spot, taking care of the jobs the 2 who had stayed back would normally do. The wind was getting stronger and stronger. I could feel it trying to blow me over the railing, while the deck beneath my feet seemed to try and buck me off like a ball. Every time one of the waves hit us from an unexpected angle, the whole crew shot up, jumping high into the air, and then landing roughly on the slippery deck. It was pure chaos, trying to work in those conditions. But I kinda liked it. The adrenaline I felt every time I saw myself almost flying toward the railing, while the sea hit the side of the boat and water shot across the deck. We actually did manage to get a decent catch, and the captain shouted that we would be returning to the harbour shortly. And the one thing we all dreaded happened. It was the guy who had asked me if I was mentally deficient. The one who had given me that compliment. He was holding onto the railing as a wave hit, and we all shot up into the air. I could hear him screaming. I looked over. It was like he was a puppet or a toy thrown around by an angry child. His whole body was stiff as he flew up and cried, and I could immediately see why. He was over the railing, and the ship was dropping down. I'm sure he knew what would happen then as well. His eyes met mine. At least I think they did. Just before his body disappeared over the railing and into the ocean. His last scream got swallowed by the gust of wind as water splashed up and rushed over the deck. "Men overboard!" That was the shout I still remember so vividly. Of course, I rushed to the spot where he had disappeared, as the others from the crew kept screaming and getting those kisbies. That's what we called the ring-shaped life buoys. They threw them out, but even I, who had gotten there not more than a second after the man had dropped, couldn't even get a glimpse of him. All I saw was the dark grey water shooting up, then falling down, while the wind howled and the ocean raged. We looked for minutes while the waves pushed us back and forth. I couldn't see him. Listened, but all we heard was the storm and the sound of the water smashing against our hull. I think I heard a scream. It was only once, and sounded far away, almost swallowed by the wind. What I saw, though, and what I think brought me to where I am today, were faces. Just beneath the whirling surface of the ocean, eyes staring up at me during the storm. I only caught a glimpse back then, and I thought I must have seen wrong. But now I'm pretty sure that my eyes didn't play a trick on me. The captain turned the ship around after we all had given up. We went back to the harbour. This time, the mood was dreadful. No one spoke a single word because they all knew that the man had just died. We had left him to die out there. It was the captain who came to us all as we got off the ship. He tried to say something, but most of the crew just left while shaking their heads. I felt that back then. Even though I was the only one who stayed with the captain and heard him out, I could already see it. The boat, my life with them, was over. None of the crew would return, even though the captain tried to claim that they all just needed a few days off. He told me that the ocean gives and takes, and that they all understood. I didn't talk back. I could have told him exactly what the crew thought of him now. That his greed had killed someone. That the vessel was pretty much haunted now. But I didn't. Because I didn't need to. I could see it in his eyes. He knew it as well. The next and last time I saw the captain was about a week later. He was sitting on the deck of the boat, completely alone, drunk as a skunk with a bottle of what I assume was moonshine in his hand. This wasn't the same man that had hired me anymore. Something inside of him had broken. The next day, the boat wasn't there anymore. People I talked to told me that they had seen him, still in a stupor, take it out alone, and he hadn't returned. Well, the ocean gives and it takes, right? I'm pretty sure he went out to the spot where we lost the man, and either jumped overboard or let nature take its course. Whatever happened, he and his ship never returned to harbour. Well, I of course didn't take it in stride, but I pretty soon started to look around again for a new boat and a new crew. I only had 1 year of experience under my belt, and the times were far tougher than in the past. So I soon hit a wall, pretty much. After spending a few days walking around, I started to feel blue, so I headed to this pub. It was a spot for dock workers and fishers, and even though hardly anyone knew my name, they still treated me like one of them. I started talking to some, in the hope of finding a job, but as I soon found out, there were none available, at least in this harbor. Well, I could have started working in one of the factories, I guess, but not going out to sea. That was unthinkable for me. My trips to the pub still bore fruit after a few days. Someone I met told me about his uncle, who ran a crab fishing boat and crew up north. He gave me his number, telling me that they were always looking for new people, but that I needed to be absolutely sure I wanted to do something like that, since those trips were far longer than ones I had been on. Well, I didn't hesitate for a second, called the guy while still in the bar, and he promised me work if I could handle it. Practically the next day, I informed my roommates that I would be moving out, packed my bags, and headed north. The man had told me that I wouldn't need to get an apartment, so I went straight to the harbor, arriving there not even 48 hours after our call, and was met by the man out there. He showed me his vessel as we walked and talked. It really was just as he had described. The ship, I mean. Far bigger than the last vessel, but the size of the crew was about the same. Well, it was meant for catching crabs, not fish, and our journey wouldn't end after a day. It could take months, he told me, but I didn't care. Not at all. I immediately nodded and shook his hand when he offered the position, and he told me that I came just in time, and if I wanted to, I could stash my stuff aboard the ship already, and even sleep there. I didn't mind. Not at all. It was far better than any hotel I could have gotten, and I slept like a stone in the cot down there. Being rocked back and forth, with the noises of the ship's hull getting stroked by the waves, it really was the best night's rest I'd ever experienced. Early next morning, as the sun rose, I was out on deck when the others came. The captain and the rest of the crew. They all had about as much luggage as I did, and even though the welcome seemed frosty at first, I was eager to set off as quickly as possible. Finally, I would get to experience that feeling again, being out on the ocean with no land in sight. The crew of this vessel was far more relaxed than the last one, I soon found out. They talked to me, asked me to do stuff instead of shouting, and seemed all in all far less old school with the way they handled things. I honestly didn't care. For me, it didn't matter if someone screamed at me to do something or asked nicely. The most important thing for me was that I was out there again, enjoying the soft breeze and salt in the air. I gave it my all, of course, but soon got pulled aside and told that I should turn it down a notch. "This is a marathon, not a sprint," one of the crew members told me, as if it mattered. Well, of course, I slowed down to keep the peace and started listening more to their conversations. These guys knew each other well. It seemed like for years. They had their own running gags, their own ways of doing things, and especially jarring for me, their own outlook on what constitutes work. The captain was the same. He wasn't as brash as the last one I had served under, which hopefully means that he won't end the same way either. Instead of shouting around, he took me aside, told me to come into what he called the bridge. and then started telling me about the job as a whole. We would be traveling north for a few days, and until then, he told me to rest as much as I could. The work, once we reached the pots, would be far more demanding than whatever I had done before. I nodded, of course. He told me that he had high hopes for me, then ordered me to go out and relax. The deck wouldn't get any cleaner anyway, and I should conserve my strength. So, I did as I was told, stood by the railing, and looked out over the ocean. It wasn't like I was antisocial or anything like that. I wouldn't have minded talking to the rest of the crew. But this view, it always drew me in. There's something about it that I can't even describe. I feel at peace when I look at it, and I could stand there for hours. The dark water beneath, the wave coming off the bow. We were still rather close to the shore and were simply traveling right now, not pulling anything in. But I knew then and there that I had found a new home. This job, no matter how hard it would get, would give me chances like this. To just look and enjoy, to feel free. Sometimes someone from the crew came to me to talk, and we chatted. Other times, there actually was something for me to do, and I finished all my duties to the best of my abilities, before coming back to that spot at the railing. Seagulls were following us already. Not many for now, but it would get bothersome soon, I thought back then. Those things always seem to know when there's food to steal. They only stopped once night fell, and while the rest of the crew went down to play cards or do whatever, I stayed up there, by the railing, and looked out over the dark ocean. It somehow reminded me of that day with the storm. I don't know why exactly, nor can I say when it started, but soon I could feel eyes upon me, and they weren't coming from the boat. The moon was already shining down on us, and I could see its reflection on the soft waves as we continued traveling north. Only now, there was something else there. Between the normal waves, there was this strange, I don't know, surge. It looked like something, or many somethings, were traveling beside us, right below the surface. I could feel myself growing uneasy. The reflection of the moon got distorted as those things passed through it. For a single moment, I thought I could see a body, grey and scaly, moving underneath the bright spot. I shivered, then felt someone touching my shoulder and shot around, almost screaming. It was just one of my crewmates, now laughing openly after having startled me, holding out a cup toward me. I took it and followed him under deck, where the rest of the crew were already waiting. We drank, we sang, we played cards, I felt happy, forgot about those things out there under the surface, and stumbled into bed at around midnight. Only my sleep wasn't restful. I tossed and turned and felt those eyes upon me again. A dark ocean was beneath me, and in there, those things raced about. Their bodies half human, half something else. Fish-like. Mermaids. But no, not the ones of the stories you tell children. The things I saw in my dreams were grey and cold, with sharp teeth and claws at their fingers. I woke up, drenched in sweat, just a moment before the siren went off. People, as drunk as myself, stumbled out of their cots and raced for the deck. We all saw the problem at the same time. It was 2:00 in the morning, but the moon had vanished. Clouds had moved in, and the breeze that suddenly blew past me reminded me of that one day. I held onto the railing and felt the first wave hit the boat squarely from the side. Other people weren't as lucky. Someone screamed as they got flung into the side of the cabin, and I heard the glass bursting under the impact. I could feel myself getting lifted up, looked back and over the railing, and that was where I saw them again. Those eyes, they were the same, the exact same. Those things, they had followed me. The light upon the mast began blinking, and every time it shone upon the now grey-looking surface of the water, I could see the movement. There were bodies in there, swimming around the boat. They were there for me. I felt it deep in my bones. Another wave hit the boat, lifted me up, and more of my colleagues screamed. One of them, the one who'd given me the cup the evening before, hit the railing with a sickening crunch, then tumbled overboard. I heard him scream and looked. The moment he hit the water surface, grey hands with claws grabbed hold of him and pulled him under. The sea around us started to boil, it seemed. The wind picked up as rain hit us from above. The captain was screaming while the crew tried their best to hold on. He managed to turn the ship just as the next wave would have capsized us and made it hit us from behind. I felt the stern being lifted up and heard things tumbling about on the deck as water burst up all around me. The storm had reached us, but the waves were still coming from different directions. For the first time in my life, I was deathly afraid of the ocean. Well, the things in it, to be exact. Something hit the side of the boat, but it wasn't a wave. I could hear claws scratching over the metal, the sound cutting through the noise of the storm. People were screaming all around me. No one knew what to do, besides the captain, who gave it his all. He saved us. The next wave hit from behind, lifted up the stern, then the bow, as metal screeched and people screamed. I got thrown back and forth as well, and every time my eyes looked overboard, I could see those things staring up at me. They had seen me back then, had noticed me, and they would have gotten me back then, if not for the captain. He saved us all. I don't know how he did it, but he managed to keep the boat upright, even while the ocean seemed intent to swallow us all. We ran ashore, not even 20 minutes later. The bow of the ship beached, and I was the first to jump off this vessel and run. I honestly don't know what happened next. Days later, I found myself sitting by the side of the road, still shaking and crying like a frightened child. With the help of strangers, I made my way back to my parents, where they could see that something had changed in me. Yeah, a brush with death will do that. I tried going back to the ocean, but every time I do, I can see those things out under the surface of the water. they are still waiting for me, looking for a chance. Only once I stepped onto the deck of a ship again. It was one of those cruise liners where I got myself hired as pretty much a cabin boy. I boarded it, looked down into the water by the harbor, and could see the movement of something big, right in the shadow of the massive hull. With tears in my eyes, I ran away again. They know me. The mermaids. They've seen me. They're following me. Wherever I go, if it's close to the ocean, I can feel them already. Looking out of the water, waiting for me to come to them. I think they know just how much I miss the sea. How I long for its peace. But that is now over. There's no peace out there for me anymore. I've lost my way, my purpose in life. All I want is to go out once more, just a glance, feeling the waves beneath the boat, smelling the ocean, relishing the breeze. But that is no longer possible for me. I know they are waiting, and I also know they won't stop. Right now, I'm working in a factory, and I dread it every morning when I wake up. Some part of me is missing. I've started smoking, drinking too much. I hardly laugh anymore or talk much at all, to be honest. Those things, they are still in my dreams, calling out to me. Honestly, I can tell you how my story ends, I think. One of these days, maybe tomorrow, maybe a year from now, when the longing gets to be too much, I will take a bottle of whiskey, I will charter a small sailing boat, and I will head out. I know the day will be waiting for me, but all I want is to enjoy this feeling. One last time. To be free out there, unbound, before they drag me down into the depths and tear me apart. Just once. Let me ask you, is it worth it?